Welcome to the Cyclical Doula Podcast. I'm Emma, a certified Sympto-Pro instructor, a fertility awareness educator, and your guide to fertility coaching and reproductive health education from menarche to menopause and all the different types of motherhood in between. If you're seeking a natural, science-backed approach to managing your fertility, understanding your cycle, or simply connecting with your body in a new way, you're in the right place. Each episode is designed to empower you with the tools, knowledge, and confidence you need to thrive in your unique journey. Quick disclaimer, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice or individualized charting support. For specific guidance, please consult with your healthcare provider or fertility awareness instructor. Now, let's dive into today's topic.
Welcome to the space where cycles breathe, where the real raw life of Emmamma leads. From motherhood's highs to charting the low, your body's story is the star of the show. Matriarch heart.
You know those weeks when your brain is making 1,000 decisions a minute, cravings feel louder than your plans, and you're wondering, is this just my luteal phase or something more? Today, we're getting honest about food, recovery, and women's health with Stephanie Mattrey, licensed acupuncturist, women's health specialist, and creator of the Pulse Project for food addiction and disordered eating recovery. Stephanie weaves Chinese medicine, addiction science, and her Catholic faith into a compassionate, practical approach that meets women in real life. We talk about why recovery is a brain issue, how cycle phases can shape cravings and copings, what food is fuel can look like without rigidity, and simple support for seasons like postpartum and perimenopause. If you ever felt shame, fear, or just confusion around food, this one is a gentle exhale, and it's packed with grounded tips. All right, let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to the Cyclical Doula Podcast. I'm here today with Stephanie, and we are going to dive into a bunch of different things around nourishment, feeding our bodies, and what that looks like in regards to different seasons of life. And Stephanie will be able to introduce herself, her experience, and where she really comes from as we get started. But I'm excited to dive into this conversation. Stephanie, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. My name's Stephanie Mattrey, and I'm a licensed acupuncturist in the state of Massachusetts. I have a private practice here, and I've spent the better part of the first decade of my work specializing in women's health and kind of helping women navigate all aspects of their health and their seasons of life, from fertility to childbearing to perimenopause, postmenopause. And recently, I have just expanded my practice to include helping women navigate food addiction recovery and disordered eating recovery. And so I find that near and dear to my heart because I have personal experience with that. And I am able to combine my expertise in Chinese medicine and my lived experience, and I've created a program for women to help them recover from food addiction and disordered eating. So I like to just encompass all of that into the women's health sphere and use that in my practice. I'm also a wife and a mother of 3 daughters, so I have some good field research data that I've been collecting for my oldest is 16. So yeah, that's about it.
That's awesome. I would love to hear a little bit more about what called you into this space. Like you said about your story. I don't know how much you're wanting or willing to share about your specific story. But just what, maybe even initially, what called you into this space of working with women in this way?
In the disordered eating way?
Sure.
Yeah,
or just in general in health.
Sure.
Whatever feels best.
Well, I'll give you answer to both sides. So when I was in acupuncture school, we had to do we were in a clinical research class, and we had to do a couple research papers. And one of the papers that I did, the topic I chose was childbirth. And it was specifically the medicalization of childbirth. And I learned a ton. I don't know if you know Tina Cassidy, but she wrote a book called Birth, and that book changed the trajectory of actually my life, not just my career. But I learned so much about just the history of childbirth, and I realized that a lot of that's not taught to women, and I wanted to kind of teach that to women. So in doing so, and learning how to teach that to women, I just, by default, just learned a lot about women's health in general and their bodies and how they work. And so I incorporated that into my practice, and I treated a lot of women with infertility. And then also, once they got pregnant, they would come in and I would help them with their pregnancies and even prepare them for childbirth, and also educate them on how to have a healthy childbirth and postpartum and all of that. So um, that's like a short story version of the acupuncture side of my women's health journey. Um, the other side, the disordered eating stuff and the food addiction stuff, is like a lifelong journey. So when I
Yeah.
was 11, I developed anorexia, and it was pretty severe. And I was on the brink of death, basically. And my mom got me some
Yeah.
help, and it was good, but not like, she took me to this nutritionist, which any mom would do, right? Like, she just did her
Yeah.
best. She didn't
Right. Right.
know what to do. And so the nutritionist was kind of harsh with me, and was in a good way, I think. Like, she was mean, like she shouldn't be working with kids. But she told me
Hmm.
what I needed to hear, because my whole life I had always wanted to be a mom, that like since I was a little
Yeah.
kid. And this woman said, if you don't start eating, you're not going to be able to have kids. Like, you're going to ruin your
Yeah.
fertility. And I was like, okay. But at the time, I was anorexic. And so to tell an anorexic kid to start eating and then not necessarily follow up or monitor them is scary for that
Yeah.
girl.
For sure.
And so I got super scared. I started eating, but I also got super scared about it. And I ended up developing bulimia by the age of 13. And it felt at the time, it felt like my secret backdoor method of being able to eat whatever I want and keep the body I want. And um, I was an athlete. And so
Hmm.
I used sports as a way for like exercise bulimia as well. And
Yeah.
it just got really, really severe, but also to the point where the bulimia was so commonplace every day that I
Yeah.
didn't even consider it a problem. It was almost like brushing your teeth. It was so normal for me
Hmm.
to just get rid of my food after every meal, that I ended up just, I don't know, I made it a part of my life. And I'm very lucky that my body um, was built with a strong constitution, because it did it was able to handle that remarkably. And I was able to have babies, 3 babies, and I had no issues with that. But so throughout my life, I just kept going and going. And then when I was 27, I was married and in grad school, and we were trying for a baby. We got pregnant right away, and I promised the baby that I would never vomit again. I was like, no, I'm not going to do this to the baby. And
Yeah.
so I stopped, but I couldn't stop eating. And
Mm.
like, it just became like the food was this drug. I didn't realize I was using it to cope with all kinds of things, like past trauma, but also like the present day of being in a master's program that was really demanding, and also being pregnant. And
Yeah.
just like it,
For
it was like
sure.
how we talk about wine o'clock for like
Yep.
a lot of women are told to have a glass of
Right.
wine. I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
come home and eat. And um I didn't realize it was a problem. I just was like, oh,
Mm.
I'm pregnant, I'm eating for 2, gained like 70 pounds or something with that pregnancy. And um, had the baby, but also like wasn't in my body. I was very disconnected from my body. So I just kept eating. And then here and now I have this baby. I'm still in acupuncture school, which is like, it's medical school. So it was very, very intense.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and so I just kept that pattern, and I had a second baby. And this time, by the second baby, I had graduated and I was studying for the state board, which was like a 9-month class of like crazy studying, like
Yeah.
full time. And so I was 2 weeks pregnant at the state board exam, and I didn't like want to know. So I didn't actually test, but I knew intuitively, like, oh my gosh, I'm
Yeah.
pregnant. So I had this other baby, and I kept eating, and I just I didn't have like a anchor or compass. So
Hmm.
food just became the way that I coped with life. I still was not bulimic actively. And then I found 12-step recovery in this process. I met somebody that had gone through it, and she wrote a book about it. I read the book, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my story. So I talked to her and started my 12-step journey in 2012. And so I have a love, not love. I don't want to say hate. Like, I have a love dislike relationship with 12-step recovery for food in general, because
Okay.
it's not the same as like the AA journey. I've been to plenty
Hmm.
of AA meetings, because you can swap in the food programs. You can go to AA if you want. And it's just a lot different. I won't get into that, but basically I found recovery in these rooms of this one program, which I won't mention the programs either, just because we talk about anonymity in the programs. And when you mention what they are, it's sort of like you don't want to become the spokesperson. Like, if it didn't work for you, you don't
Yes.
want to,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yep.
Um,
Totally. Absolutely.
and so, and the first one did work for me, but I didn't maintain my food sobriety, and I was like too ashamed to go back, even though now I know that that's part of recovery. I didn't know at the time. And so I found another program, um, and it was about 2017 by this time. And I liked it, but it was really, really strict, like militant, really strict, almost to the point where it mimicked an eating disorder, like the way that there are these rigid rules and
Yeah.
you have to do this, or you're out, or you're a failure.
Mm,
And, but I like attached myself to that, or I was attracted to that because it, um, I was used to that, like that. It was familiar to
right.
have that,
Yeah.
that punishment, I guess. And so you have to get a sponsor in these programs. And for the food programs, you call the sponsor every day at like 5 a.m. You tell her what you're going to eat. You eat that only. And if you stray from that, like, you're not sober. And so you have to kind of report that. Um, and she was so harsh with me, like, just very, I don't know. We're all just addicts. They're not like psychologists
Yeah.
in the
For
room, you
sure.
know?
Yeah.
She was just really harsh, and I was so scared of her, and I used that fear to kind of fuel my recovery. And then one
Mm,
day I was like making dinner for my kids, and I like took a bite of something, and I was like, "Oh, I want more." And I just kept eating, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't tell her what I just did. Like, I'll be dead. I can't tell her."
yeah.
So I vomited for the first time in 10 years after, I had gone through these 3 kids and everything. I didn't mention I had the 3rd kid in
Yep.
these programs. And the interesting thing about addiction is that it's progressive. And so whether or not you're engaged in the behavior, it's progressing in the brain. And so let's say you're sober for 10 years, but you left off only doing this much at the beginning of those 10 years, and then you're sober those 10 years. If and when you pick up again, the disease behaves as though you never stopped. So you need an actual more amount, to get the high or whatever, after
Yeah.
that period of sobriety. So I was shocked. I was shocked that, like, how severe the bulimia was. And it was, I'm talking like in the bathroom 50 times a day, like eating sheer amounts of food that I can't even like list, because it was so much. And I was doing this all also while parenting these 3 kids, and it was
Right.
too much. So eventually the sponsor dropped me because I had lied to her, and you're not supposed to lie, which I get. Like, honesty really is the balm against this disease. And
Right.
so I ended up checking myself into a recovery program in Florida, which a treatment center, and it was like the best decision I made. It was so good. This place was so great, and it got me to find my footing enough. I came back, and I still stumbled here and there with like in and out of
Right.
relapse, but also in the process of that, I came to the Catholic Church, which I was raised like anti-Catholic, like all, just I was
Yeah.
very pagan, I guess, in my thinking and all of this. And for some reason, all of a sudden I was open to this. And so my conversion is really, I say that it happened to me because I wasn't looking for it. And when it was happening, I was even convinced, like, there's no way, no, this isn't real. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not, so it was really this encounter. And, I couldn't divorce my recovery from my conversion. Like they were both one and the same. And if I wanted
Mhm.
one, I had to have the other. And if I wanted the other, I had to have the other. Like they just are very intertwined. And so the more I went through the recovery process and the 12-step rooms, the more I realized like, oh my gosh, there's got to be other women out there that like need
Yeah,
this. And I
right.
felt like in the 12-step rooms, it's non-denominational, which is I understand. But it is spiritual and stuff. But eventually it became not enough. Like the spirituality, I needed more of like this Catholic spirituality for my own recovery. And
Right.
it dawned on me that, you know, I bet there's other women that need something like this, that are also Catholic or Christian, that you know, need to hear this message. And so I created my own program called the Pulse Project, and it's an online program, and I've incorporated it into my practice. And so people that are local here, if they come to me in person for this, they can go through my program, but I also treat them with acupuncture. There's like an
Okay.
ear protocol for addiction. And
Okay.
so that together works really well. But then there's also the online component for anybody, anywhere, that just takes them through the program. And it's beautiful to see people, I don't know, respond to this. And also it helps my own recovery as well, to like be able to serve in that way. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's basically my story in a nutshell.
That's amazing. Thanks so much for taking the time to share all of that. I feel like,
Sure,
well,
thanks. I
first of
hope it
all, like
wasn't
I
too long.
learned so much about you know, it's absolutely it's great.
Good.
I learned so much about you, but I feel like it really gives a lot of detail to like who you are as a professional as well, like how you're approaching clients and how you're working within people within these recovery programs as well. That like it seemed like that it just seems so welcome. Like your story helps feel welcome, which I know is a
Thank
lot
you.
of times part of like that sharing aspect of it, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Um, so I think for me, like I'm curious and if you have seen um and this is just like my own brain from where I come with
Mhm.
looking at cycles all the time.
Mhm.
Have you noticed in your work um that there's like cyclical aspects to women's health and these processes
Mhm.
um
In terms of eating
with
disorders and like what, like when they
yeah or
flare and stuff?
maybe yeah
Or
sure
yeah, I mean,
or I think
the
they're
full
just like recovery in general
yeah.
health changes in general maybe
Yeah.
too.
So I don't know if you probably know like the cyclical influence of like women and productivity, and how like the follicular phase is often when they're getting motivated and they have all
Right,
this energy.
right,
I shouldn't say we have all this
yeah.
energy, and the ideas are coming, and we're like, okay, and we get out the calendars and the planners, and
Yeah,
and then the ovulation happens, and then the luteal phase is much more like, what did I say I was gonna do? Like we kind of
right,
lose that
right, yep.
the cognition, because I think all the blood is in the womb, like ready to
Yeah,
have a
right,
baby.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and so I think that happens with this type of ailment, like addiction or eating disorders, is like there's this. I also can speak from my own experience. There's this drive in the follicular phase to like seek recovery and like, okay, I'm going to do it this time, and
Right,
things feel a little bit organic and I don't want to say easy, but not as like impossible. And then the luteal phase happens, and it feel like you have like a hard day, or somebody has a hard day, or they're really really tired, and then that's when the thoughts kind of can creep in, and we convince ourselves like, oh, just one, or oh, I deserve to have a day off, like why do I have to keep doing
yeah,
this? I feel I'm better. And so like noticing those types of patterns and teaching them to women, and say like, look out for this in your luteal phase, and note like if you're having a hard day mentally, like just note where you are in your cycle and use that
yeah,
as data. Bring it back into me and we'll talk about it, and we'll navigate through that. But like you don't need to go back to your old behaviors that don't serve you just because
right.
you're having these feelings. primal, right? Like the way
Yeah.
that our brains work in terms of our cognition really is animalistic. It all comes down to, am I ready to have a baby? Am I going to have a baby? Am I not going to
Right.
have a baby? And the body thinks it's going to have a baby for like at least a week within the cycle, right? Like
Yeah,
at
right.
least.
Yeah.
And that it's not like after that week, all of a sudden, since progesterone drops, like we're just like, oh, I'm not going to have a baby. It's not until
Right.
the period happens that we're like, oh, I guess I'm not
Right.
having a baby. So during that
Yeah.
whole, there's like almost a second phase in the luteal phase where women are still like nesting and like figuring out, where are the tigers, what's going on, like, and it's so, I heard somewhere that women make 35,000 decisions a day
Oh
in
my
their
gosh.
brain.
I mean, like that totally makes sense, but that
Yeah,
seems like a huge
I
number.
know. Well,
But
it's
then also it's
so
like, that sounds about right.
totally. And so then think about the amount of like glucose and energy you need for
Yeah.
that. And then you're talking about the hormone changes that happen at ovulation and during that phase, and then the brain and how it kind of navigates decisions. So all of
Yeah.
a sudden, what was common in the follicular phase, like, oh, I'm fine. Oh, maybe I wanted that cake, but I'm going to have the salad, now
Right.
becomes, well, just one, maybe just one, and so anyway, that's a long answer to explain, but yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful though. I think that helps me understand it a little bit better from that perspective, and hopefully, like someone who's listening in, that helps as
Yeah.
well. I wonder too, when you're working with women in this way, when you're working with them in your program, obviously, like, this is a very specific niche of people who are coming to you, and obviously they're people with this addiction.
Hmm.
Um, Is that something that, well, actually, I guess I should clarify. Like, is it only people who are in this like addictive eating disorder um phase, or like is it for anybody who's kind of
Any
like working through
It's
the
anyone, yeah, because
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
yeah, you
Thanks
don't,
for clarifying.
right, no, right, you don't have to be an addict to like have these things happen in your
Right.
cycle. I think there's just like not enough attention paid to women and like
Mhm.
what we manage throughout the month. And then
Absolutely.
it gets like made fun of or like poo-pooed, but it's really a
Yeah,
lot. It's a lot.
it
And so
is. Yeah.
I'm big on like brain chemistry and what's going on in the brain. How do the hormones actually like affect the brain, not just the
Yeah.
uterus and all that, and cognition. And so yeah, for instance, I see a lot of women right now in perimenopause, and so
Okay.
they their cycles are messed up. Some women get 2 periods a year. Some of them get like their cycle length becomes 90 days, and then their
Yeah.
bleed time is like 3 days. And so they're in the meantime, because they're not like they don't have that regular flush out,
Yeah.
it all builds up, and it's like this one giant like luteal phase, if you will. And so
Right. Right.
learning to help them navigate um the thought patterns that come, or like sleep
Yeah.
disturbances. A lot of them have a lot of sleep issues. Um
Mhm.
so we work on all of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that brings up for me also, like, knowing that a lot of women struggle with just food in that like luteal phase and when they're bleeding, in regards to just like different cravings.
Hmm.
And I wonder if you have any insight to like how women could approach that in a different way,
Yeah.
either maybe like mindset wise or
Yeah.
physically, things like that.
So my favorite saying is, food is not entertainment. It's fuel. Like, or I say food is fuel, not entertainment. And so it's kind of a harsh statement, but like if you kind of have that in the back of your mind, it puts into perspective of like, where is this refined food going to take me? Like this ultra
Yeah.
processed food that I want right now, is it going to make me feel better for more than 10 minutes? Probably not. Do I have to deprive myself of it? No, like it's not, I'm not a black and white or like this idealist
Right.
person. However, I do believe in collecting data of your own, like how your cycles influence your thinking and maybe your cravings as well. but in the luteal phase between ovulation and through the end of the bleed, um, women really do crave sugar. They crave sugar and flour and fat because
Right.
they're, again, like they're getting ready to
Their
build
bodies are
a
trying to
human.
prepare. Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure.
So it's just naturally we're kind of drawn to the higher calorie foods because, again, you don't know when the tiger's going to strike, when you're going to have to run. You're now building this baby. Not to mention, again, the brain making all these decisions. It
Mm-hmm.
needs fuel. And so just keeping that in mind, it doesn't mean that you have to have the croissant every day. Maybe you
Right.
have it one day during that phase, and then the rest of the week you kind of have boring chicken and salad and rice. Like, it's boring,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still healthy and it's still going to help sustain your energy, and it's actually going to be better for your body so that when the new follicular phase comes, your ovaries are going to be healthier and have much more nutrition so that when they do pop out an egg, it's, all of that, all of it
Yeah.
really
Awesome.
builds on itself.
For sure.
Yeah. And so I will say that a lot of women do crave chocolate, right?
Yeah.
Before their periods. And chocolate, I don't remember what the compound is, but there's a compound in chocolate that releases dopamine like that. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting that, I don't know why it's such a common craving for a lot of
Yeah.
women, and they'll just have like a little square. Now, like for me, I can't do that. I'll crave it, but if I have a
Right.
little square, all of a sudden it's like the whole aisle of the grocery store. So that's
Yeah.
that's like another element of all of that.
Right.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, I think that's helpful to think through all of those aspects of it, and that phrase "food is fuel." I've heard that before, and I feel like that's a really good thing. And I think a lot of times, like I also see that as helpful in like a lot of different seasons in women's lives as well. To really think like postpartum comes to mind, and like pregnancy comes to mind too. Of just like sometimes it's more important to just like make sure you're getting the food that's actually going to fuel your body to like
Right.
work through
Right.
your day to day. Because I know without that nourishment, it's hard to function
It's hard.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's like an
absolutely.
active endeavor, like
Right.
the postpartum period is so fragile. Like, women are so
Mhm.
fragile, and
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay,
Yeah.
right? Like and their babies are fragile. They're like in an outer womb together, right? And so we need
Right.
to
Right.
nurture them. And so the meal trains are awesome, but I would maybe recommend, like, if someone's going to do a meal train for you after you have your baby, like, ask them if maybe you can have a hand in like what people can make for you.
Yeah.
I think a
Yeah.
lot of, like, me personally, like, I love it when someone tells me what they like, because then I'm like, oh, good,
Yeah.
I know they're going to
Yeah. I
eat
can make
this.
this specific thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, like, having little things like that to plan and say, hey, maybe can you do the meal train like after 30 weeks or something, and I can start putting
Yeah.
stuff in the freezer, and then you have everything kind of maybe portioned out if you want to do that, to kind
Yeah.
of keep things, because like I just remember as a nursing mom, a new mom, I was lucky if I ate a full meal. Like, I
For
would
sure.
have
Yeah.
like a graham cracker and milk,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
was my lunch. So yeah, having those little things planned is good too.
Hey friend, quick pause before we keep going with today's episode. If you've been curious about learning to chart your cycle, but the whole thing feels just a little overwhelming, I made something just for you. It's my 14-day charting challenge. It's a completely free experience inside my private community. For 2 weeks, you'll have the opportunity to go through simple daily practices that will help you tune into your body's natural rhythms without pressure, without perfection, and without needing to know anything ahead of time. You'll get a chart to use, 3 short, confident building lessons, and a supportive space where you can actually start to understand what your body is showing you. It's all bite-sized and totally doable, even if life feels super full. So if you've been wanting to learn a fertility awareness-based method or just feel more connected to your cycle, come join us. You can sign up at the link in the show notes or going to my website, Emmamma.com, and clicking on the free charting challenge. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, absolutely. When I was postpartum, my husband's like the cook of our family, so I feel like for me, like that experience was a lot different than most people's. But a friend wound up bringing over a meal at one point, which was great. But she also brought over like a bunch of other food. Like she brought over like fruit and like snacks and muffins, and I was like, now I like know after going through that I'm like, okay, like if I'm bringing food to somebody else, I'm also gonna like make sure that they have breakfast to eat the next morning too, if that's something that is important. And I feel like, oh man, like when we're feeding people in that way, that can be so being conscious of that and like
definitely
and thinking through that. But I love the idea of like we're our gatekeepers of like, yeah, like this is the type of food that I'll eat well. Like, can you bring me this specifically?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. I am also wondering, so you mentioned that you have 3 daughters. That's right. Right. They're daughters. So how do you, not that it would be similar if you had sons as well, but like how do you, with your experience, how do you implement this into parenting and in regards to like just what you know about women's health in general? Like how are you having these conversations with your daughters around just like being healthy in general and getting into those conversations?
Yeah, well, it helps that they're all athletes. They're all like high-level competitive swimmers, and that sport is I call it a lifestyle. It's not even a sport because like we're just at the pool all the time. But it's good and they love it. But it is really demanding, so it kind of gives me a little bit of an in to talk about nutrition. Like, hey guys, if you want to achieve this goal, maybe you should listen to mom about eating A, B, and C. Now, getting them to eat
for sure
in a healthy way they're pretty good, but like there's definitely goldfish going on and like cakes and cookies and whatever, and I think that's fine for growing kids. But I don't ever mention like bodies or looks, or I try not to. Like sometimes if they're dressed up for church or whatever, I'll maybe say like, oh, that looks nice. But I actually try to police that a little bit because I grew up like every single day it was commented on what I was wearing and how I was looking. And I just feel like that gets into girls, especially into their heads. Like, oh, mom didn't say anything today. I wonder if I'm, so I try to like, I try to subliminally not make it a big deal about how they look. As long as they're groomed,
yes,
and like they're clean.
That's different. That's different.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
But then it was really interesting too, like teaching my oldest, because of course she's the guinea pig, so she's the dry run, and teaching her about her body when she started menstruating, and like finding myself, like I showed her. Of course, I wouldn't expect a teenager to like use a basal body thermometer. But I showed her what it is and like what it does and how cool the chart is and like the dips and valleys and what happens when. And she was just like, oh, and so it kind of instilled in her an organic interest in her own body and like noticing, hey, mom, what is this like discharge or whatever? And I get to tell her like, oh, well, that's in a very matter of fact way, not like you don't talk about. Right? Like, that happens when you're exactly.
Absolutely.
Like that happens when you're ovulating. That happens. And so then, working that into the conversation about health. And also I don't really talk too much about food. I talk about nutrition, right? Like I sort of,
absolutely.
I figure out ways to say like, okay, this is, if you want to feel good, like in the water, maybe don't have the bag of chips, maybe have like some protein instead. And they get to, again, do their own field research and collect their data. Like, oh, I had that candy bar and like, I don't really feel good in the water. And then with their cycles, kind of also teaching them, because I think across the board, it takes about 3 years for any girl to go from menarche to like an established period cycle, for their body to really learn how all these cycles. And so it can be irregular for up to 3 years. And so seeing them, I remember seeing my oldest I could tell when my period was coming by her behavior. Because they
Yeah.
cycle with you before they even start bleeding. So like 3 years before her first period, she started cycling with me, and she would get all like edgy and irritable like 2 or 3 days before I started my period. And I, of course, never put it together because it's always like,
Yeah.
why is she being like, and then my period would come and I was like, oh my gosh.
You're
And so
also probably more irritable and like all
yeah,
that too.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Absolutely.
But then teaching them too about like, okay, you lost it or you flew off the handle, just like I have. Where are you on your cycle? Like, it's not that you should yell at your family members, but like give yourself grace that like so much is changing in your brain through puberty and now and during, and like here's why. And so I explain all of that, and I like to kind of go back to I have a degree in psychology as well, for my undergrad degree, and my favorite thing to study was animal behavior. And so I
Mm,
love to go into that realm of like touched on it a couple times in this conversation, like where
yeah.
are the tigers? And because
Yeah.
like females really we're all about like what's going on. Like that's why we're good at multitasking, because we have to make
Right.
sure that everything's safe and the children are
Mm-hmm.
safe. And the girls brains kind of start doing that early on, and I think it's overwhelming, and so
Yeah,
they fly
for
off the handle,
sure.
and then their hormones are like craziness. So
Right.
teaching them to give themselves grace instead of like beat themselves up like, oh, I lashed out again or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like for me as a parent, and what it sounds like you're doing too, is just like having those conversations on the regular, just as like,
Yeah,
this is
matter of
just
fact.
this is just a conversation. Like, this is
Right.
just how things are, or like,
Yep.
this is the way our bodies work, or this
Uh-huh.
is the way things happen scientifically. Like, I
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those things where sometimes it's just so much easier to just probe a little bit to like make sure that you're giving the right information for like the season that they're in.
Yes.
Um, and then just given the smallest details as needed, and go from there.
Yeah. And regardless of what anybody tells you, all teens want to talk to you. They do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if they're telling you they don't, or like, get away from me, mom, like it's not personal, but try again. You get up and try
Yeah.
again. And like, I've had some of the most amazing conversations with my girls after I've given them the space to feel like safe to open up. And that's
Yeah.
where I insert like the little,
Right,
this
right,
is what's
right.
happening in your
Absolutely.
brain and your body. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think like for sure it's a great reminder to be able to just like, if you're a safe space for your kids, like they
Mm-hmm.
want to feel that connection. They want,
Yeah.
and they're gonna push back because like that they're supposed to. Like, they're supposed to
Exactly.
like see if you'll still stick around,
Exactly.
and
They
still
need
be
that
there, and
trust.
still love them, and still
Mhm.
connect with them, and just keep trying. Yeah,
Yep.
that's great. Absolutely. Um, all right. I want to know, like, what if somebody is listening to this and is feeling shame or fear around food in general, what do you want them to hear first? Like, as if they're
Uh,
coming, if this is the first time that they're like listening into something like this.
what I'd like to say first would be that it is not your fault, that it is an actual brain illness that is starting to slowly be accepted. It's not quite accepted in the field, the psychiatry field. It's not in the DSM-5 yet. Food addiction is not. Eating disorders are. Um, and you know, they thought alcoholism was not a disease for how many centuries,
Right.
right?
Right.
Until they were like, oh, actually. And so some people like it is like alcoholism. Some people can have a glass of wine and be fine, and they're not alcoholics. And then some people can have a donut and be fine. They're not food addicts. But there are some people that respond to sugar like biologically and refined flour and things um in an abnormal way. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, like it's brain chemistry, it's not their fault, but there is a way to navigate it. It's not necessarily um pain-free or comfortable at the beginning, but the on the other side of like that embarking on the recovery and living in recovery is I can't even describe it. It's the most amazing space to be
Yeah.
in. So that's what I would say. It's like, it's not your fault, and there is a solution, and
Right.
you can do it. And I'm not going to lie that it's going to be hard, but it's like good hard. I also try to tell people, like, yeah, recovery is hard. It's work. But also being in the disease, active addiction, is hard.
For
So like,
sure. Yeah.
choose your hard. They're both
Right.
hard. And one is going to
Yep.
lead you to a very productive, beautiful life, and the other one's just going to keep you stuck. So, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you want to share about either your work or that you want women to hear in general?
Um, I don't know. I think I think women's health is incredible, and I think that women are not, like, we're told to do all this self-care, but then we're
Yeah.
not necessarily given the space or respect to, like, execute that. And so we
Mm.
justify, like, "Oh, I got a massage today," but, like,
Yeah.
it's okay, right? And I think that putting ourselves on the list, it's really putting our oxygen masks on first. And so
Mm-hmm.
if women are mothers, all women are caregivers, we're nurturers by nature. And so if we're mothers or we're taking care of somebody or whatever, putting ourselves at the top of the list of things to do, which is never ending, that is like putting our oxygen mask on first so that we can continue to help others. And so that's what I try to do every day, is just put on my oxygen mask first, like maintain my recovery so that I can then go into the world and help whoever needs it. And the Pulse Project is unique in the sense that it really it combines science, like brain science, addiction science, and mental health and emotional health, but also the spiritual
Yeah.
aspect of it. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
the three legs of the stool kind of coming together in this holistic way. And it's a beautiful thing, I think.
That's amazing. I love that. I'm so glad that we were able to have these conversations. As we round out,
Yeah.
I would love to hear, I've been asking all my guests what like rhythm or ritual is important to you, and do you like not live by, but that's a phrase I've been
Hmm.
using, but like in the sense of like use regularly.
Yeah. I'm pretty devoted to prayer.
Yeah.
So I liked recently I've been only getting up at like 6, which is late for me. I like to
Mm-hmm.
get up at like 4:30 or 5, and I just sit. I don't like make it a big, "Oh, let's get out a Bible study. Oh, let's pray the rosary." Like, I do those things at other
Mm-hmm.
times, but I start my day every morning by sitting in prayer, in conversation with God for about a half an hour, and that it just grounds me and anchors me so that I can continue my day. I also write my food down the night before. And it's not that like it's this rigid, militant thing, but it's more like I make a promise to God, like, this is what I'm going to eat today. And then sometimes the day comes and I have my food already made and I'm like, I don't really feel like eating this. But I did say that this is what I was going to eat, and I want to live in integrity today. And so this is what I'm going to do. It's just fuel.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
and so those are the two things that I try to do every day.
I love that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. Where can people find you? I'll put all the links to your stuff in the show notes, but where can
Sure.
people find
Thanks.
you or like work with you if they want to?
My website is www.shinerising.com. You can go there and find all the information about what I do, and the Pulse Project. I also have a podcast called the Pulse Project, and that's on, any podcast platform. And yeah, I think that's all that I that's all
That's
that I do.
awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, it's been such a joy to talk to you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you sharing so much about just who you are and like what you do and how you're helping women walk through this space. So thanks so
Thank
much for
you.
being here.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It was great.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks so much for tuning into the Cyclical Doula Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much if you shared it with a friend or posted it on Instagram and tagged me at Cyclical Doula. If you've got a question you'd love to hear answered on the show, head over to emmamma.com/podcast to submit it. And don't forget, leaving a quick review really helps this podcast reach more people. Plus, if you upload a screenshot of your review on my website, I'll send you a special surprise as a thank you. You'll find all the details in the show notes about this show today, and I really appreciate you being here and listening in. I'll see you next time.
Welcome to the space where cycles breathe, where the real raw life of Emmamma leads, from motherhood's highs to charting the low. Your body's story is the star of the show. Matriarch hearts, cycles that speak, charting the truth in every peak. This is the cyclical doula sound, where body wisdom is always found. Matriarch hearts, cycles that speak, charting the truth in every peak. This is the cyclical doula sound, where body wisdom is always found.
Just a disclaimer and a reminder that any guests on the show are views of their own and not necessarily views of Emmamma LLC or Emma Goff herself. Thanks so much.